Morning, everybody. This is Jackie from Jack Gets Lost Down a Book Hole, and I thought I would do a review of The Circle by David Eggers. I was gonna do this because I had talked about this book when I did my kind of wrap up of my trip to South Carolina and what I read, which this is one of them, obviously. But then I was watching some reviews, and I thought I would give it a shot. Probably won't, compared to those reviews, it will probably suck, but I'm going to go ahead and try it anyway. So, The Circle is about this girl named May Holland, who is, she's 20-something young woman who gets her first she had a job before, but it wasn't that great. She gets a job at the local big-time internet company of the Bay Area. People, in those reviews, I didn't notice it, but of course I didn't think about it either. A lot of people in those reviews said that it was probably like the Bay Area. But she gets this job, and it's like, as those people in those reviews also said, this company, The Circle, is like Google meets Facebook, meets Instagram, meets Pinterest, meets Twitter, meets even YouTube. And at first, it seems like a really weird company, and like they're all like, participation is a big deal, and her boss calls her in when she isn't as participatory, and gives her a hard time about it, but in that weird way where it's like, oh, it's okay, but really it's not, kind of attitude. And May starts to, at first she's a little hesitant, but she slowly starts to get more and more involved in this company and gets wrapped up in their philosophies of openness, and everything is exposed on the Circle's boards, and everything is there's no secrets, no lies, and all that juicy stuff. I really enjoyed this book. But the problem, and by the way, this is spoiler filled because I can't do a review without giving away some spoilers. Or at least I don't think I can. I don't know, because sometimes when I think I'm not giving away sometimes when I'm doing these where I'm talking about a book, I'm not 100% sure if I'm spoiling it or not. Especially when it's a book that's been around for a long time and you don't know who has and who hasn't read it. But I feel like how I feel about 1984, where I was terribly terrified and uncomfortable with the book, but at the same time, it was a good book. It was very well written. It was very accessible to readers. It wasn't like with the classics where it was hard to, it's a bit more challenging to read. It was more like a modern classic in the way it was written. And I do feel like in the future, this would be considered a classic and a book worth studying in school. Now I get though the criticisms people give it, like the fact that the characters are not very well developed, but I think that was the point of the book, because this is about these people getting caught up in this company and how they are spending so much more time on the internet and not really socializing with people in person and experiencing the world outside of this company. I mean, in this company, there's even places where, like, if they get stuck at work, there are it's like set up like a college campus. And there's dorm rooms where people can stay if they get caught up in their work, and it's too late, and it's really late, and they just don't want to drive home at night. Now, the problem with this whole universe is that the arguments seem a little ideal. They're very idealistic, and some people could at first be thinking, oh, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but then if you really think about it, it is a bad thing. Like, having taken away someone's privacy just to gain more knowledge is not a good idea in the long run. I mean, just because people want privacy does not mean that they're doing something scandalous or not being good or not being on their best behavior. And as the people sent in those reviews of the book, when you're on camera, you're not necessarily behaving how you normally would. You're behaving like how knowing that people are watching you which is not necessarily a good thing either. I mean, yeah, you might be on your best behavior, but that's not you. That's not the real you. Now, I'm not saying that the real you should try drugs or smoking or commit crimes or anything, but if you're aware of the camera on you, and this is what I always think about when I'm watching, when my mom is watching reality TV and I end up going down to the living room and I, catch a glimpse of it. I feel like those celebrities, because a reality TV is oftentimes based around celebrities, unless it's something like The Biggest Loser or American Idol. I feel like they're just behaving over the top because they know the camera's watching them. And so their fans are paying attention to them. So they will act differently. So it begins. My dog's coming back and forth in the room. Hopefully right now it's just Sophie. She's laying on my couch. You can't really see her. Let's see if you want to... See, I don't know if you can kind of see her. But anyway, sorry. When I was reading this book, I was so freaked out by it because unlike books like The Hunger Games or Divergent, which granted I haven't read Divergent, I've just seen the movie, glimpses of the movies and stuff, like parts of them, I've never actually watched. Although I did get we rented the third movie from Redbox because I was kind of interested in it. So I saw the third movie. But those never scared me. Those never made me uncomfortable. It just felt like a sci-fi. I mean, I know it's dystopian, but it felt very much like a sci-fi. So it didn't scare me. It's just typical adventure science fiction type story. But this one, just like 1984, freaked me out because, especially this one in particular, because we do rely on the internet. And I have watched people that I'm friends with on Facebook who will post things about how much their life sucks and what they're going through, and like relying on their friends on Facebook to give them sympathy, and which is really sad and disturbing to me. I mean, there's some of them, yeah, I can understand because their family life isn't that great compared to mine. I mean, I have a great relationship with my parents and my sister. I'm well aware of that. I mean, sometimes they get on my nerves, and sometimes I feel like they don't entirely understand me. But compared to the people I'm friends with on Facebook, I have a great relationship with them. And it's just disturbing how much they put on the internet. How much they put on Facebook, and how they believe that their relationships on Facebook have value. Not that they don't. I mean, there are some, like, one of my best friends, the first time I met her was on Facebook. But the difference is, I hang out with her in person. Every year, we go to a Comic-Con type convention. But these other people, it's like, I won't, like, in fact, I only believe there's only, like, I look at my friends on Facebook as, I have circles. Like, if you've seen the movie, Meet the Parents, in Meet the Fockers, the dad in that movie, the fiance's dad in that movie has the circle of trust thing, and that's kind of how I look at my friends on Facebook. Like, I have that one circle, that small middle circle of the close friends. Then I have the second circle of the group of friends that I have a good relationship with. We're not super close, but we're good friends, and I trust their judgment on certain things. And then I have this next circle, which is people I'm not that close with, but I will still talk to them, and I like them and everything. And then the outer circle are the random people that I'm like, I might occasionally talk to them, but we're not that close. But I mean, I barely talk to them. Because this is the internet, and my status updates are all about, like, if I'm excited about something, like my nephew has, crawled or talked for the first time, or, like, walked for the first time, or, like, I think I shared on there that I got my first job, but even then, I don't even think I shared it as a status update. I think I just messaged certain groups of friends, my groups of friends that I talk almost every day to my close friends. But other than that, I don't post updates about my life. I mean, sometimes I do, but most of the time I don't. Because I don't think it's anyone's business on Facebook. It's my personal private life, and that's what this book looks at. And it's like, how far are you willing to go to gain knowledge? And it's just, it's very creepy. It's very weird, and I kept rolling my eyes and getting angry, especially at May and her Lenny, and I was like, what is wrong with you people? You're not this, it's not her boyfriend, her ex-boyfriend Mercer. He wanted nothing to do with this. Nothing to do with technology or anything. And May was like, you're an idiot, you're an asshole. And like when she was, all of her friends, because her life was now on the internet, her whole life, and all of the people, her so-called friends, were all like, oh, he's an idiot, why'd you even read it? He's a Sasquatch, because he's I guess he's a heavyset guy, and he comes off to May as very condescending and arrogant, even though now I'm thinking about it, it's like, he was just trying to help her out, and he was telling her how bad this was, and he was right, and I almost wish the author, I know it kind of ruined the point of the book, probably, but I almost wish there was a sequel to the book, where, like, May realized how dumb she was, and how messed up this whole circle is now that it's complete, and, like, how she's writing there are people that the people that Mercer met, because he said, Mercer writes her a letter about how he's trying one last effort to get her to change her mind and to see the error of her ways, and then he tells her, and he says, I understand, you know what, but I get it, it's too late now, you're already part of this company, and I can't save you from them, but don't get me wrong here, there will be other people like me who will rebel, and no one wants to be watched by the camera, and this is the spoiler, at one point, they, the company develops these cameras, and that's how they're able to watch everybody's lives, and May is given one of those cameras, and it was the drone, they created these drones that would follow people around, and it was originally intended for criminals, to track down criminals and people that are doing illegal things. And so May decides, well, I'm going to go say hi to Mercer, my ex-boyfriend, because he has left at this point. She wants to track him down because she wants to prove a point that these drones and these cameras, that she's right and he's wrong, and that they are awesome and everything, and that they will be able to find him, which was not his point, but she's like trying to prove this point to him. So she tracks him down within a certain, really quickly, and finds him, and then he takes off and freaks out because he doesn't want to be followed by these cameras, which is totally understandable. It's disturbing because he's not some criminal. And the cameras are they're chasing him down. It's basically a creepy, it has very cultish vibes. And they're like, oh, come on, Mercer, I want to be friends with you. Don't run away from us. It's creepy. And then May talks to him through a microphone, and she's all like, Mercer, it's just me. I just want to say hi. And they chase him on a bridge, and he commits suicide. And it's like, really? You don't see him doing this as... And, her boss Bailey tells her that, oh, it's not your fault. He's just a paranoid idiot. You shouldn't have to feel bad. If this was just not that suicide is normal, but if this was, the typical reason why people commit suicide, and not because she's sticking a camera in his face and stalking him and being like, I want to be your friend, and I'm not going to stop chasing you until you want to be my friend and realize that I'm smarter than you. And that I was just only messing around and making a joke. And it's just, that part really bothered me. But I do get why people are found it a little over dramatic, and that he and Mercer was a bit of an archetype and everything. But like I said, I feel like that was the point that Eggers was trying to make with his characters, like Mercer and all the people at the circle. But now let's talk about May as a character. May was At first, I admit I liked her and thought, but she is not like, she is no Triss or no Katniss Everdeen. The girl is stupid and selfish and vain, and it's not, and she loves attention. I mean, she would probably love being being known as the savior of the world, which essentially that's what she thinks she is. With the circle and everything, what she's doing with the circle, she thinks she's saving the world and protecting us from the bad guys. And another thing a reviewer pointed out is that criminals want their stuff on camera. They're not gonna be all like, oh no, I'm on camera, I better not be doing anything bad, I better not rob this bank. I mean, there are always cameras in stores all the time, and yet they will still rob the bank. They will still steal money from the cash register and threaten the cashier with a gun. Even though they probably are well aware of the cameras watching them and they'll be caught because they love attention. So it's like, it's not, your logic is kind of dumb. I mean, if you were dealing with normal people, then yeah, maybe normal people will try to behave and be a good boys and girls in front of the camera. But criminals won't. I mean, yeah, you'll be able to if you see them, you'll be able to chase them down, but cameras have always been in, like, stores and buildings and stuff, especially high-profile buildings like government buildings. And it's natural that the companies like the Circle would have cameras, too. So it's kind of, the logic is just, it doesn't work. The logic behind why they're like, if you're being watched, wouldn't you do good things? Because, yeah, of course May's gonna say that if I had known I was being watched, I wouldn't have stolen the kayak, but May is a good person in a sense that she's technically a very moral person. Technically. So, of course, she would be all like, oh, I want to steal the kayak if I knew I was being watched, because there's a scene, I'm referring to the scene where she's gone to her parents' house, and they're all like, they didn't like the idea of the cameras watching them, and she's really frustrated because they're not going along with her little plan because, the cameras aren't helping, because her dad, in the book, part of the plot of the book is her dad is really sick and everything, and she figures if the cameras are watching them, then the Circle will know what's going on with their dad and can provide the care he needs, but at the price of their every move being watched and supervised. It kind of reminds me of Ed TV in a way. Except for in Ed TV, these people were actually enjoying being watched at first. And then I think over time they don't like it anymore. But, so her dad, she goes to their house and confronts them about that. And it gets all mad and stuff, and then it ends up, when she comes back, she ends up catching them in a compromising position, doing some sexual act, but Bailey, of course, won't take that off because you have to expose everything because it's so important. They can't break the rules, even though it's like it's none of their business what her parents do sexually. And then, but before as she is leaving her parents' house, her dad had given her a letter from Mercer, and this was the last letter he sent about saying that I want to help you, but I realize it's too late. That letter I mentioned that he writes that inspires her to track him down and prove her point. And when he, kills himself. And she's all mad and stuff, and that's when she comes back and catches her parents on camera doing the dirty. And so, in frustration and anger, because kayaking is her hobby, she goes out to, she goes to that place where she'll get a kayak and go on the water and stuff. But then, no one's there. It's late at night, so no one's at the office and everything. So she decides she sees a kayak just laying there, and she steals it and goes out into the water. Now, I understand when I was reading that part and how the company reacted to her doing this and being like, you shouldn't have stolen. If you have been watched, then maybe you wouldn't have stolen in the first place. I was thinking, well, in a small way, they have a point. Because she could have, put herself in a lot of danger. She could have fallen off the kayak or something. And no one was there to help her out. But, but at the same time, it's just like, it's her hobby is none of their business. there are some hobbies that people want to keep to themselves. But this is just, but like, even though I liked her at first, she started to get on my nerves. I wanted to slap the girl, I wanted to shake her, I wanted to be like, you dumb idiot, with May. But she was so selfish and vain. She loved the attention, and she did not see, like, when her friend Annie, oh, I remember her name this time, Annie, who gets her the job in the first place, she decides to try this new program, which is kind of like Ancestry.com, where you can find out about your family members and your past and everything, where you come from. And so Annie decides to participate, be the guinea pig of the program. And and there's all this information that she finds about her family, where they own slaves and all that kind of stuff. And it's not a lot of good stuff. She finds out about her parents now when they were young, and they were sitting on the bridge, and this guy approached them, and then he ended up committing suicide, and her parents didn't do anything about it. So all this is freaking her out, because all the people at the circle and all the audience are commenting on it. At first they're sympathetic, but then the comments slowly start to be like, oh, go kill yourself, and how dare you, and do you own slaves? And the black people that at the company are wary of her now, and it's like, your family owns slaves, so I shouldn't trust you, because you might treat me the same way you might be racist against me, and all that stuff. And she gets all upset, and she goes to May, and she's like, I'm freaking out, I'm having a mental breakdown, because all this stuff is coming out about my family, and everyone's telling me all these horrible things, and how bad of a person I am. And May's like, oh, don't worry about it, it's not a big deal, it will blow over. It's like, she doesn't care about her friend. Now she's freaking out about this, how this is overwhelming her, and she's having a mental breakdown, and May just is like, oh, it will just blow over, or calm down, you don't need to worry about that. Which, it's funny, because there was something that happened with May where she got all upset about something, and Annie was, kind of had a similar reaction, although, in that case, May wasn't really having that much of a mental breakdown. She was upset, but I feel like she wasn't gonna get sick or anything from it. And then at the end of the book, May ends up in a coma, essentially. All because of this whole situation, because she freaks out, because all these people are saying these horrible things about her because of of all the information she finds out about her ancestors and puts on the internet, which is about her ancestors. It's not her. It's the people before, the people that she came from. And people you're guilty by association. Even though she's never done anything about that. And it's just, May, and like I said, May just doesn't say anything. And it really pissed me off. And it pissed me off how she acted towards Mercer and everything. And, acting like he was, at first, like I said, I liked May. So at first I was like, oh yeah, you're right, Mercer's so condescending and everything, and he's such a jerk. But then as the story progresses and as May devolves into this horrible, gets worse and becomes addicted to this, I'm rolling my eyes and like, May, you're an idiot. He's right and you're wrong. Get over it. It's like, you're delusional. And it just pissed, I just kept getting more and more frustrated with her character. Now, the twist of the book, I don't know how I feel about it, because, it's like, I don't know if I saw it coming, if I was aware of it or not. Because now, after watching the reviews and stuff, and them revealing the twist, because they were spoiler reviews, I'm thinking, well, did I know this? Was I aware of this? I don't think I even thought about the twist, and thought about what it was. And it's just, and now I'm thinking, after after having read the book and knowing what it was and people's reaction to it, I'm like, yeah, it totally, it's like, yeah, that makes sense, or, oh, and now I seen, or I should have seen it, or, I don't know if I really saw it, or if I'm just assuming that I saw it, or I'm just saying I saw it because other people are pointing out, and it's like, oh, now it's obvious. It's like when you can't think of the answer to a question, and then they reveal the answer at the end of and then you're like, oh, damn it, now that makes sense. It's like, oh, now you know the answer. But they gave the answer. So it's like, did you really know the answer in the back of your mind? Or you're just saying you knew the answer, even though, because they gave the answer, and so you're like, well, I know the answer now. So I don't know if I was surprised by the twist or not. Because I just wasn't, it was more like I was just trying to finish the book before I left, because I was, like I said, I was reading this book at my grandmother's house when I'm staying with her, and we were leaving the next day, and I was so close to finishing it, and I wanted to finish it, so, like I said, I don't know if I was surprised at all by it or not. Now, when I was getting to the end, because I kind of did cheat a little bit and look at the last page and read the last few sentences of the last page just to see how it happens, because I was getting a little restless in the book, and that's what I tend to do. I tend to cheat and look at the end of the book, see if everything works out, and I assumed that it was going to be a happy ending, and that May was going to see the light. Like I said, this is a spoiler review, but she didn't. It didn't, and but at first, like I said, I admit I wanted a happy ending, but thinking back now, that one had made sense. It would be weird if all of a sudden May saw the light and was like, you're so right, I should have known, and, and this whole time, psych, this whole time I was just pretending I was part of the company. But really, it wouldn't make sense. It would be too random for her to do that. And it would just be such a Disney-fied ending if it ended happy. Unlike the YA dystopians like Hunger Games, which those don't, not that those end happy or anything, but May is not, like I said, May is not like Tris or Katniss, where she's rebelling against the bad guys and rebelling against the government. Which, I mean, even in 1984, it was kind of like that, where the protagonist was rebelling against the government. But in truth, the protagonist was kind of boring and dull. Unlike unlike in the, YA novels. I mean, the protagonist in Fahrenheit 451 was a lot more interesting than, the protagonist in 1984. But this was... May was a character that you kind of love. I feel like she's a character that you love to hate. And someone's review on Goodreads, they said, I think it was on Goodreads, they said that they didn't think of May as the protagonist, but really the antagonist, and that Mercer and the other guy, Ty, were the protagonists of the story, not May. But the thing is, it's from May's point of view, so we automatically see May as the protagonist, or like I did anyway. And she's not, if you think about it, she's more of an antagonist. It's interesting to get from her point of view, and there are a lot more authors that are doing that. Like The Young Elites by Mary Lou, which I have not read, but I mean, the character becomes the bad guy, I believe, or what would be classified as the bad guy, as the villain. And there's movies like Maleficent that are the origin story of Maleficent. And then Once Upon a Time, they were doing the origin stories of characters like the Evil Queen and Rumpelstiltskin. Which, by the way, if any of my Windsor friends are watching this, I am not saying Rumple is a bad guy. I know he's not the bad guy. I am well aware he's not the bad guy. But it's just, he's receives the label of villain, and he's the guy who steals, in the original story, he steals the miller's daughter's baby, and he tricks her and all that stuff, so he's seen as the villain, even though, especially with Once Upon a Time, it kind of paints, in season 1 at least, that he's not a bad guy, he's just the victim of the darkness, that burrows itself inside of him. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But yeah, it definitely is interesting when we get stories like this that are about where you could argue that the main character is more of an antagonist than a protagonist. So yeah, I was hoping that it would be a happy ending, part of me was, but then part of me also realizes, no, that wouldn't make any sense. So I think, no, so that's my thoughts on the book. Oh, and also, like, the other characters, I know a lot of people say that they didn't get any good development, but like people said, part of me is thinking that maybe the other characters, just like May, that it was his point to show how dumb they really were and how easily corrupted they were. And another thought I had was, someone asked the question of why would they hire May when she has no technical skills whatsoever. But I feel like they probably hired her because she was easily corrupted by the company. And I think they were targeting people, the everyday man. Not all of them, obviously not all of them, because there were people who were inventing special cameras and stuff. But I think I think they were also targeting people that were easily influenced and manipulated by the Circle, not consciously, but subconsciously. I think they were trying to get people like May, who weren't smart enough to realize what the company was doing. Because and so that's my argument for why they hired someone like May, who had no technical skills whatsoever. So those are my thoughts on the book. I definitely recommend you checking out this book, especially when we're living in an age where we spend most of our time on the internet, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or Tumblr, or whatever other social network there is. Like, at one time there was MySpace, which is kind of the same thing as Facebook, which I actually had a MySpace account, but I had it when my parents didn't want me to get one. Like, my friends secretly got one for me. So I got in big trouble for that. And that was when I was a teenager. So ever since then, I always feel like I have to make sure it's okay with my parents if I get accounts like BookTube, for instance. So those are my thoughts on The Circle. Like I said, I definitely recommend it, especially in our day and age, how we're always on these social networks. So if you've read the book, what did you think of it? Do you agree with me? What thoughts do you have? If you haven't read the book and you're interested, like I said, I definitely recommend it. It's a quick, easy read. It's not, it is a long book, and the first part is really long. And that's one of my only criticisms, is the first part. Like, it's divided in book 1, book 2, and book 3. And book 1 is super long, and there was some unnecessary information on there that I didn't think they should have put on there. I mean, part of me was like, well, maybe they did that on purpose, because David Eggers was trying to make a point. But I don't know, I felt like it was a bit much. So hopefully I don't have to remake this video and this doesn't matter. But if you like this video and like my thoughts on The Circle, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel, and I would really appreciate it. Alright, bye.